Your voice, your opinion, your community. Fact TV, free speech protected.
Welcome to The Long Road. I'm your host, Kris Roberts, and we get a few local public announcements. This weekend in downtown Keene, if the weather cooperates, we're going to have the Ice Festival, and I think there'll be 12 to 16 places where people will do in their artistic talents. Some with chainsaws, some with chisels, but people are going to go out and try their best to put on some really great carving. So, hey, if it's cold enough and it works and it's not raining, grab yourself a hot coffee or a hot chocolate and go down and see the people carving the ice and showing them their appreciation, your appreciation. The second thing for the people of Keene, the Keene district budget will be presented in the Keene High School auditorium, and it's a $75 million budget. People will be able to, you'll get presented, you'll be able to ask questions. People, Keene voters, will be able to try to add or decrease the budget. People will have the ability to make motions right then at that time, and the people in the body registered Keene voters can vote those increases up or down. They can't add anything specific to the budget, and they can't take anything specific out of the budget. So if they say we want to add one teacher at the high school and that one teacher costs $100,000, they would have to make the motion to add $100,000 to the 24-25 budget. And then someone would have to second it, and then there would be a vote on it. There would be either a show of hands vote, which would be counted, or you'll have a little voting tab that you can circle yes or no, and you can drop it in the voting box, and then they'll be tabulated, and then it would be announced. So everybody is allowed out there. People that go to surrounding towns that send their children to Keene schools, they're allowed to be there. They'll be in the upper deck, and they'll get to ask some questions too. And it will not just be the school board members presenting the budget, but I'll be the one that's presenting the budget as the finance chair, but questions can be asked, and if I can't give the answer, I will just return and redirect it to what's needed. If it's special ed, if it's finance, if it's HR, I will just redirect it to the individual so the individual can then speak with authority. So those are two big local events coming up. The third one is we have a regular city council meeting, but every other Thursday, when the finance committee meets at City Hall, they will be, the finance committee will start early, and then they will discuss the capital improvement program for the city to see where the money is proposed to be spent in the future, where some money will be set aside, for example, if a new fire truck costs $1 million, the city may decide, you know what, we're going to put $1 million away each year. So 5 years from now, if we decide we need to buy a new fire truck, we already have $500,000 saved for that, and then we would only have to go out and bond another $500,000 and saving interest. And for example, people go, well, what happens to the money that we're saving? So the money that we're saving to go with the capital improvement goes into interest-bearing accounts. And so now where for the longest time, where interest was like 0.1%, 0.2%, now interest has been going up 4 and 5%. So the city is making a pretty good return on its money that it's putting aside in its capital improvement program, so waiting to expend it on needed projects. And you may go, for example, well, what happens if 5 years from now the fire truck doesn't have to be replaced? Well, the city would look at that. The city would look at pricing. The city would look at what could we get in if we used our current fire truck for a trade-in, or what could this fire truck sell on an open market where a smaller town would buy it. And then, or the city may say, well, you know what? We can get another 2 years out of this fire truck. And if we can get another 2 years out of the fire truck and we don't have to spend all kinds of money to repair or maintain it, and it's well worth a while to keep the fire truck for another 2 years, we're going to keep the truck. We're not going to buy a brand new truck for the sake of having a brand new truck. No, some things have a certain life, but the maintenance department and how we take care of it can extend the life of vehicles, and that's what we want to do. Like, for example, the police cruisers, they have a life, they have so many miles, and so we replace them, but we don't get rid of them. They're saying, well, they still got functional value, so we will put these vehicles to another department in the city. So these vehicles are paid for, very limited maintenance, very limited insurance. And so why go out and buy vehicles that we don't have to and have to pay for when we can get maybe 2, 3, 4 more years out of an old police cruiser in a position where there's less demand on it. So that's what's happening. So the FOP and the capital improvement program is on the city's YouTube channel. So you know what? If you get a chance, I would check in just to see where your money's going, how it's being spent, and to see whether you agree or not. And so I think that is extremely important and would help increase your knowledge. You know, let's talk about the Middle East. The vast majorities could care less about the Middle East. The Middle East doesn't mean anything. You know what? What's happening in Israel? Yeah, that's in Israel. What's happening in the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea? No big deal. Well, last week, I got gas at the Cumbies. It was $2.98 a gallon. I had my 10 cents off, so I get $2.88 a gallon. Okay, when I was driving over here today, gas was $3.16. So, in less than a week, well, that's Thursday. Yep, that'll be a week tomorrow. It cost gas has gone up 18 cents a gallon. So what has happened in that last week? The Hintus, we made 3 or 4 bombing attacks on them, taking out some high-value targets and stuff. They in turn fired some more drones, and they hit a British tanker. The tanker is on fire. And then also one of the groups in Iraq fired on American military base in Jordan and killing 3 Americans, 3 National Guard people from Georgia. Okay, so we go and say, well, it doesn't really pertain to us. It really doesn't pertain to us. I'm doing minding my own business, trying to make sure I'm taking care of my family and stuff. Well, if you have 2 cars in your family, that means in a week's time, the price of gasoline, if those 2 cars are using 30 gallons of gas a day, a week, has gone up $5. Bingo, all of a sudden, that's $250 over a course of a year. That $250, excuse me, could be a whole week of food. If you're 2 adults and 2 kids, now because of what's going on in the Middle East, you just lost a week's worth of food over the next upcoming year. Put that in perspective. Okay, you're not going to give up on the food, but you're going to, instead of, buying hamburger or buying a cheap steak, you may go to cube steak, which is probably the toughest, hottest chewing that you can go, just above ground beef, that you really don't want to buy. Or you're gonna, that means I can't go out, so $5 a week, that's $20. So that means I'm gonna have to skip a meal at McDonald's or skip a takeout meal someplace. So what's happened in the Middle East affects us and go, well, that's only $5. Well, so if we're doing 30 gallons a week and that's $5, and I drive a tractor trailer truck and I'm doing 300 gallons of diesel a week, that means my cost went up $50. Okay? Cost of a year, that's $2,500 extra in fuel. So if I'm delivering products to places, I'm going to increase my cost by at least $2,500 to make up the difference. So you go to Walmart or you go to Hannaford, the Kohl's, the stuff in there are going to go up because increased transportation costs. So there's a number of things that are going to affect you. You may not pay attention, but it's going to affect you. It's going to cause inflation to go higher. Okay? And so there's a lot of things that are affecting us that not we're really paying attention. And like I said before, basically, when a hunter fires a $2,000 drone, we fire a $2.5 million missile to take it out. Excuse me. And so when we send aircraft to go and bomb in Yemen and stuff, we're spending very expensive munitions, bombs and missiles and stuff to take them out. And they go, well, yeah, we can do this, we can do that. But here's again one of the reasons we were not able to win in Iraq, why we weren't able to win in Afghanistan, is because we are the big, heavy elephant. We are the big, well-equipped, costly elephant. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the Taliban, the hunters, they are the very low-tech mouse. These low-tech mice know where all the mouse holes are. And when it comes down when they can hear the big elephant, high-tech elephant come in, they get to hide. They suffer very few losses. Okay, so if we were to suffer a big loss to the high-tech elephant, it takes us a long time to replace it, because we're going to replace it with a bigger and better high-tech elephant. And in the meantime, the hunters, for example, will get a bunch of drones from China, do a little fixing up, putting a little thing on, so a couple of $1,000, bingo, they send them over again. And they use them. And it goes on and on. And so we as the United States has decided that it is important to us that we maintain freedom of the seaways. Something that Great Britain used to do when Great Britain was a world power. Okay? Great Britain is not a world power. Great Britain has not been a world power since really the middle of World War II, and some can argue before the start of World War II. It likes to say they're a world power. They like being up on the pedestal. Okay, right now, when we talk about Great Britain, like being a world power, Great Britain has a ship in the Middle East with the United States, help coordinating the attacks against the hunters. The Great Britain is looking at sending a carrier to the Middle East to help. Okay, Great Britain is now decommissioning 2 more ships. One, just 6 years ago, they spent millions, hundreds of millions to refurbish because Great Britain doesn't have enough sailors. Right now, Great Britain, who is, people like to think as a great world power, has 26,000 people in their Navy. 26,000. Okay? Do you know that the United States Navy is about 15% more people than Great Britain's Navy does? And so Great Britain is putting on a show. We're saying, well, you know what? We have Great Britain helping us. Well, if I'm going to go to war with a company of 100 soldiers, and 97 of those 100 are American, and one is British, and one is French, and one is German, that, I don't care how you put it, that is not a coalition. We could say all we want for political reasons, that's a coalition. No, that's an American force manned by American servicemen and women and paid by the American taxpayers or put on the American debit card. Well, credit card, because we don't have any money used a debit card. Okay. We in the United States, we get about $250 billion worth of oil from the Gulf, from OPEC nations. The amount of oil, I think the last time I looked at it, we imported something like $600 billion worth of oil. And of that 600 billion, like I said, about 40, if with those numbers, if they're still correct, about 40% of that comes from OPEC. Okay? Where does Great Britain? Yes, they have their oil. Norway has its oil. So where does Europe get most of its oil from? From OPEC nations. And well, what happens? Well, here's the thing. When a ship say a ship from China, going to go to help Europe, comes through, goes up the Persian Gulf, the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal, the Mediterranean, and docks on the west coast of Europe. Okay? Egypt gets quite a bit of money for the use of the Suez Canal. But if that same container ship that leaves China and has to go around South Africa and up the African coast and going back into the Atlantic and into the west coast of Europe, it cost about $1 million per voyage more. Could take anywhere from 18 to 40 days, depending on the cargo. Container ships are much quicker, oil tankers are much slower. So right now, we have United States ships, Navy ships, defending and protecting the Red Sea from the hunters, okay? And right now, the American citizen and the American taxpayer have little to no gain out of it. So what we're doing is NATO, for years, for decades, have been living on the back of the American taxpayers. The American taxpayers has put all kinds of troops. Yes, we've taken them back, but we have troops all over Europe. We've been expanding troops now into Poland, Lithuania, Estonia, and we're going. Where very few countries in Europe spend 2% or more of their gross national product on defense. They don't have to. They know that we are doing it. Okay? Let's look at Ukraine. Who is more at risk right now? Is Russia going to attack the United States? I don't think so. Is Russia going to attack Germany? Is Russia going to attack one of the NATO countries that would force the United States' hand and we would retaliate in a heartbeat? No. Who stands to lose the most out of here? It's the NATO countries. I don't see the United Kingdom upping its expense in support of its department. If anything, the United Kingdom wants to continue reducing its armed forces, saying they don't have the money for it. Germany, France, Italy, Denmark, Norway, you don't see these countries coming up with more money to spend to defend themselves. You don't see these countries, when you look at the amount of money that United States has already paid support Ukraine, the weapons, the ammunition, and the training that we have given, and the fact that the president wants to send $60 billion more money to the Ukraine because he says it's important to the United States security. We don't even have enough amphibious ships to load up a division or two to sail over to Europe to fight the Russians if we had to go to war. All you have to do is look back into the 1990s. In 1990, when we were getting ready for the Persian Gulf War, when we had a heck of a lot more shipping in the Navy, a heck of a lot more amphibious shipping, how long it took us and everybody to be in the position so we could launch an attack. August, September, October, November, December. It took us almost 6 months to get a number of troops, aircraft, and supplies so we could attack a second-rate military power, which turned out to be a third-rate military power like Iraq. Is Russia a first-rate military power? For political reasons and for reasons to help inflate our defense budget? Yes. But as we've seen going in, it's really a second-rate power, because what we have seen is that multi-million-dollar tanks, things like that, they can be taken out with small, inexpensive drones. And so technology and everything has changed. So that's one of the things, okay, what's going to happen in the Middle East? I don't know. But there's really kind of no doubt in my mind is that we as the American people are going to pay with our pocketbook, whether in food or gas or clothing or heating our house, things like that. We're going to pay for that. Okay? And what's going to happen is the Navy, the Air Force, and the Army are going to suffer even more brutal recruiting crises. For the last 2 years, the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army have not been able to meet their recruiting goals. And as a result, all three services have had to reduce their end strength. The only two services, the Space Force, it's small. It goes to a certain group of people, and even people from other services are still transferring it in. They met their recruit. The Marine Corps is still meeting its quota because, like with Bud Light and other ones, go woke, go broke. The Marine Corps is fought as hard as it could not to go woke, and the Marine Corps has not lowered its standards. Hey, the Air Force just increased its standards, 42 years old. The Navy has increased it. The Navy just came out this week and said, if you get a 50 or higher on the ASVAB test, you don't even have to be a high school graduate. You don't even have to have a GED. We will take you. That's how bad we're hurting. The Army goes, the Army says, we're not going to do that, but we'll take you into our preparatory schools to help get you ready to get to pass it and get enough, because we need people as cooks. We need people at supply. So what they're doing is, come to our school, and then they're really saying, you can come in, we'll keep you in for 4 years, we'll keep you at the low levels. We know you're not going to, your chances of passing the tests for advancement and things like that are going to be pretty slim. So you can do your 4 years, you'll be in E3, and they'll say goodbye because you won't be eligible for promotion because you wouldn't have qualified to go to the right schools. You wouldn't have qualified to be promoted. And so they will do that to chug in the numbers, to use and abuse a lot of these young men and women like they did during the Vietnam War, to get bodies in. We just need you in so we can send you to Vietnam and get rid of you as soon as you come home. So that's one of the reasons why people don't want to put their family into the military. Because you know what? What is it going to benefit? Is it going to benefit my children? Yeah, they can be patriotic, but you know what? Nah. President Trump had 4 or 5 deferments. He played sports. President Biden played sports. He had 4 or 5 deferments. So we have individuals, the former president and the current president, who found all kinds of ways to weasel out not being in the military. President, I got asthma. You didn't have asthma when you're playing football and all this other kind of stuff. The other one says, I have a bone spur. Oh, you can go right down to get that cut removed pretty quick. My grandson, I was talking to him in the other day, and he's a Marine. He's getting ready to go to the Middle East, Mediterranean Middle East. And he goes, you know what, Pop? Why do we got so many fat generals? I know. Yep, Xavier. That is really hard to understand. Yep. You got a lot of these fat generals who have no problem with throwing out young men and women because they're overweight. He goes, that's pretty hypocritical, and that's poor leadership. Yes, it is. And that's why mom and dads are not allowing their kids to go into the service. when you see a bunch of the generals on TV and you see how fat they are, overweight, and fully knowing that young enlisted people would be thrown out and getting a general discharge, not an honorable, a general discharge for being overweight or failing a PFT. And you know that a bunch of these really fat generals and admirals, you know, there's no way in the world that they could pass the physical fitness exam. So you're being a hypocrite. When there's hypocrite, there's not leadership. Okay, let's go to politics. Let's see. I'm starting, I took a break in here, so I'm starting my 11th year on the city council. I've got 20 years, 7 terms on the school board, and I spent 12 years or 6 terms up at the State House. And one of the things that I've learned, the biggest thing that I've learned, so it's 11, 31, so the equivalent of, quote, 43 years in politics. No matter what people would like to believe, the vast majority of elected officials do not care about the voters. They will blow smoke up the voters' butt to get elected. But they don't care what the voter wants. Okay? They will put bills in that they know that has no chance in hell of sometimes even brought to the floor, even making it out of committee. New Hampshire's different, but other ones, just so they can say, I put this bill in. Just so they can do that, so they can get your vote. Okay? Most people, whether they want to accept it or not, realize that's most likely happening. And the reason most people don't want to accept it is because are you going to go out and say, well, you know what? This person blew smoke up my rear end, but I'm voting for them because they blew the best smoke up my rear end. People would like to look at you. Okay? The vast majority of people, okay, say if their father was running a business and their father was 81 years old and was showing the signs of Joe Biden. I think quite a few of them would run to court or get to their lawyer and find out, you know what? How can I get an appointed fiduciary for Dad before he starts making some really bad decisions? And you go, well, but that's my dad. President Biden is totally different. President Biden has the most powerful and most stressful job in the world. And you're saying, oh, he's different? So if you wouldn't trust your own 81-year-old dad to run the business competently or to make good financial decisions with his resources, and you felt that was in his best interest and the family's best interest to appoint a fiduciary, but you think something totally different about Joe Biden. Okay? Now, let's go to the other side. Okay. Former President Trump, he's making a number of gaffes. Nikki Haley is now Pelosi Haley. So he's making gaffes that, you know what? You would normally say if you were at a family reunion or whatever, oh, that's grandpa, you know what? He's 77 years old. He's overweight. He does some of this stuff. He makes mistakes like that all the time. So you would be coming up with excuses for no one to pick on grandpa because you know grandpa's like that. Okay? So you have other people will go and say, I'm going to support President Biden, or I'm going to support former President Trump, because if I don't support President Biden or I don't support President Trump, I'm not going to get financial support and endorsements from the Democratic National Committee or the Republican National Committee. So I know I could say, either one could say, you know what? Neither one is fit mentally or physically fit to take on a job for 4 years, next 4 years, for the President of the United States. But my priority is not what's best for the country. My priority is what's best for me. What can I do? What do I say to convince people to vote for me? What can I do? What can I say for the Democratic Mitch McConnell, the Republican, and I can't think of the name, the guy from New York, the majority leader? What do I need to do and say for them to give my campaign funds millions and millions of dollars to help increase my chances of getting reelected? Whatever you want me to say, I will say it. Bingo. Just like Mitch McConnell goes, I don't want you guys to vote for this or support this because we don't want to give President Biden any chance, any help in getting reelected. But Mitch, I think it's a great idea. Hey, you know what? If you don't want to agree with this, we will find someone else to go in the primary against you, and we'll give him or her $2 million that we were going to give to you so you could get beat in the primary. No, Mitch, you've done a great idea. Great. You're going to get support. Okay. Lo and behold, anybody that goes against Pelosi or Mitch McConnell or Johnson and the guy from New York, he always wears his glasses on his nose. You go against them, or the head of the Democratic National Committee or Republican National Committee, you ain't getting anything. Same way, like if you want to become a senator or in certain positions in the state of New Hampshire, you have to kiss the ring of Mr. Buckley as if he was the Pope. You got to kiss his ring to get the blessing, then the money will go to your campaign. Then people know that part. People know most people know it. A lot of people don't want to accept it. But here's the other part. And this is the scary part. Okay. When I used to go up there, I said, hey, I will listen to the issue. I will get as much information as possible, and I will make what I think is the best decision for the good of the whole based on the information I have at that time. If I get new information, I could change my mind based on that new information. But I'm not going to vote the way I'm told. Okay? You pay a price for that. But what if you go up at the State House or you even local elections and stuff? A lot of people, I would say at least 3/4 of the ones I've run into over the years do not get elected, do not run to do what they think the people are sending them to elective office for. They get elected to be able to impose their will and their beliefs on the majority. If I go up and I go, man, you know what? I think we should have unlimited abortion right up to the day of birth. If I say that, like I can't say that because a lot of people don't agree with that, but I will go in and say, yep, so I get elected. So even though 60% of the people may say, hey, you know what? We think abortion should only be legal up to 20 weeks and after that, no. But you know what? I can sit down and write a bill and say, this is what I want done. Okay, abortion up to 30 weeks. But you can go and say, hey, who supports that? Or some really radicals way out there. Or I can go and say, no abortions whatsoever. If you happen to get, not only will we have no abortions, we'll have no plan B, and we won't even allow you to sell any type of contraceptives in the state. Again, both radical left or right. But if that is my personal belief, it goes in, screw everybody else. I now have the right to put my own bill in, stating that, and you know what? I can be on TV. I can be in a newspaper. It's only a small period of time, but I can get my 15 minutes of fame. You know? And unless someone wants to run against me 2 years from now, who's going to do that? And you notice in New Hampshire and a lot of places, a lot of people don't want to get into politics because politics is, no, it's bad. You don't want to do it. You want to be someplace where you can be productive. So, and then the other thing about politics, Abraham Lincoln said, if you want to see a person's integrity, is give them power. Okay? And then other people would say, power absolutely corrupts. Power corrupts absolutely. Yes, you can give someone power and see what their character is. You can give people power and you can see how it corrupts some people. But the worst thing about power is how corrupt people will be never to give up that power. What do you mean? Look at it. Look at Donald Trump. Look at Joe Biden. Look at Mitch McConnell. Look at Nancy Not none, but the guy. There was a couple of bigots from racists from South Carolina. Jesse Helms of North Carolina. A lot of these people were 99 years old, and he died. These people are way past their productivity, and they will refuse to say it's time to go. It's like a baseball player staying past its time and looking pathetic at the plate, or a basketball player staying past its time and can't make it up and down the court. A professor at the college past his time and all he or she is doing is mumbling. Okay? That is the most dangerous thing about power, is the corruptibility it causes when person will refuse to give up his or her grip on power, irregardless of their age. Okay? No one ever thought. Look at Franklin Roosevelt. He refused to give up his power. We had to have a constitutional amendment to say you couldn't serve more than 10 years. Who knows? Okay, we have World War II. If Franklin Roosevelt stays alive and then Korea comes, does Franklin Roosevelt, he does his 4th term? Does Franklin Roosevelt be allowed to run for a 5th term? Okay, the corruptivity of these older people staying in power is they think they're still contributing, but they're really being propped up by the people behind the power. If I'm behind the power, I can get all the benefits of being in a powerful position without having to be held responsible for any of those decisions. So, okay, Joe Biden is going to the place, Palestine, which had that horrible train accident last year. His Secretary of Transportation, Buttigieg, was a really embarrassment last year. So I'm hearing on the radio, I don't hear anything about Buttigieg. Buttigieg still gets to be the Secretary of the Treasury. He gets all the benefit of being a Secretary of Treasury, but he's not getting the responsibility of the fiasco. Okay? Buttigieg, the train thing happened on your watch and you didn't do anything to correct it. And so there are a lot of people that are at the power trough, drinking from that power trough, eating that high quality alfalfa because they're supporting the king. It's a really good example of the emperor has no clothes. And they go all the time, and the only thing they fear is that someone is going to go and say, look, everybody, the emperor has no clothes on. And you know who's going to be most embarrassed at all? It's the emperor. Because all the emperor's handlers have been telling the emperor every single day how beautiful, how regal, how royal his clothes look. And they knew that every single day that the emperor was going out, making an embarrassment of himself, and they knew he had no clothes on. They know when Joe Biden goes out and he has the gaffe like he had in South Carolina a couple of days ago, or when Donald Trump goes out and has the gaffes, the people who are benefiting from Donald Trump and Joe Biden being in power, hey, you know what? You're doing a great job, sir. Bingo. Because they understand neither Biden or neither Trump realize they have no clothes on. Because both of them are being filled with a lot of hot air, not for the benefit of the country, not benefit for them, but benefit for the power seekers around them. And that's what you have to look at. Am I frustrated? Yes, I'm frustrated. Do we have a lot of really poor leadership? Yes, we have a lot of really poor leadership. But you know what? I can't tell you who's better. Who, name me, I can't tell you better politicians that could replace Trump or Biden. I can't tell you who as commander-in-chief that are in Congress that I would trust the lives of my grandsons with if we had to go to war. That's how bad it is. That's how upset it was. I had politicians, commander-in-chiefs, that I didn't like, but I could trust with my life. But I can't trust any of these with my grandsons' lives, and that's what upsets me. I thought I was doing better for my grandsons, and I'm not, because I kind of lie to them when I say we have a commander-in-chief that we can trust. We will have a commander-in-chief we will be able to trust. That's why mom and dads, grandpas, even people who have served in the service don't want their children going into the service now. Failed leadership has negative consequences. So that's all I have for today, and I will see you next week.